Hi, everybody. This is going to be a video just going over the tools and materials needed for the book arts class. So I am going to just go down the list and show you these items so that you can see what they look like, because I just think it's helpful, even though you're going to be purchasing them from either the Blick list or the Amazon list or wherever you can find these items. I just feel that it would be helpful to you to see what they look like, just in case, you go to Joanne Fabric or Michael's or wherever, and you see these things, you might be like, oh, it's less expensive here, or it's more convenient or whatever. And so I thought this might be a good video to have for that reason. So I'm just going to go down this list. So you have a copy of the syllabus if you're a student in the book arts class. And if not, you'll still be able to follow along. So I'm going to just move that out of the way and just kind of set it to the side as I go down the list. So the first thing is a bone folder, and I have my tray of tools set to the side, but I just want to be able to pull each one out. So this is a bone folder. It's going to be used for folding a crisp fold in a piece of paper. So just for example, you fold a piece of paper and you can just use your finger. And I'm going to be doing this in all the videos, so it's not going to be the first time and last time. First time, but not the last time that you see this. And then you just fold a crisp fold that way. And so that will come in handy. So a bone folder, that's a tool you may not have. There are going to be tools that you probably already have. The next thing is an Exacto knife and blades. So everyone pretty likely has this. I have this in a cork so that I don't stick myself when I'm trying to find this tool. So you can see this is just a standard Exacto knife. It doesn't matter what color or metal or whatever it is. And then you can just change out the blades. And I don't have those handy, but you know what they are. They're just replacement blades. And you do need a clean blade. If you start tearing paper when you're cutting, that's a problem. So a metal ruler. So you really must have a 12-inch metal ruler like this. Cork backed is great. If you don't, this is if you have, it does have a cork back, but if you don't have that, that's fine too. And this is really, you must have this one at least. This will probably come in handy for our class if you already have a 12 and you have the funds to be able to get an 18. They're not very expensive, and this is very helpful when we're going to be cutting long strips of paper during the class. So an 18 is good to have as well, but it's not required, it's recommended. Scissors, I like a pair of scissors like this that have a real sharp tip like that. They're not that large. And you can see that's how large that is. It's a kind of a medium pair, small to medium. But I really like that sharp tip. That's what I'm putting on your list, and that's what you're going to need. There's times where we might be cutting little snips. Cutting mat, that's here underneath. I just keep mine in the same place all the time. And this one is like a sewing one. So it's not as thick as some of them are, but this works perfectly fine. If you don't have this, you can also just use a piece of cardboard or binder's board underneath. You just want to make sure that you're not cutting on your table surface, because that will wreck your table and you don't want to do that. So a pencil with eraser, I mean, everybody knows what that is. You've got that, but we're going to need that probably every day. So the first part of this list that I'm going down is the toolkit items, and that means things that you need for every project. You need to have this because they're going to be used repeatedly. So a needle awl. So what that is we're going to be punching holes for sewing. And noticing some of this stuff's kind of blending. Maybe I'll bring my paper so you can see better. It's a pretty thin awl. So it's got a thin point. You don't want to get one that's real big, like in a hardware store, they're bigger and they look like a nail. This one's about the size of a needle. Metal triangle. This is very important for one of the projects. It's a few weeks away, but this is such a good item. And I use it all the time because it's smaller than that this is about 7 inches. And instead of using that 12-inch ruler all the time, This is sometimes just great if I need to cut something real quick. It's still a metal edge and I use it all the time for other things too, but we need it for a project. So definitely get that. Glue brush. This is, I'll show you my preferred. There's all kinds of glue brushes, but this is actually a painting brush. This is what I like. It's like a 1-inch brush. And I just like to be able to put glue on in flat, broad strokes like this. So this is what I use. This is an expensive brush. This is a Catalyst polytip bristle, and it's a 10. And I guess that's, I don't know what that is, 10. But anyway, that's the size. It's about an inch. You look at the mat, it's about an inch wide. That's what I like. But you can get other things, whatever suits you. You just need a glue brush. A stenciling brush, this you're going to need for the first project for the image making. When we make stencil, when we do pochoir technique, you need this flat brush like this. These are inexpensive. They usually come in packs of 3 different sizes. This is a good size. This is like a 1/2 inch, 3/4 maybe. Yeah, it's 3/4. I'm putting it on the mat. If you don't understand why that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm measuring with that, because these are inch squares. So that stenciling brush, you just need one because we're going to be using an ink pad with it. But if you want to use multiple colors, you want to get multiple brushes. So that 3-pack that most places have, I've seen them at Walmart, I've seen them at Joann, I've seen them at a lot of places. They usually have 3 in there. So that's the stenciling brush, the binding thread. So this is a special thread. It's not embroidery thread, and it's not like for a sewing machine. It's heavier than that. It comes in different sizes. And I mean, you guys are not going to get into this kind of thing. If you buy binding thread, and you're not going to get a spool this big either. It comes in a pack, and it's some amount of yards. 1 pack is going to get you through the semester, I think. But this is what you want. And you can also get, if you really get into it, and I can give you these kinds of details, if you like color thread, there's places to get that. That's not what I'm requiring for the class. You just need a little packet of thread, but it does, you can, if you get into this and you really want to make more books and you want colored thread, I can definitely give you a link for that to purchase. And then the binding needle. So this is the last item on the toolkit. So these are just things you would have in your toolkit all the time. So I've got mine in a little piece of Tyvek. They're just stuck through here. But that's the size needle that you need. And the size is, if you're getting a tapestry needle, it's a 22 or a 24 is what I like to use. So both of those, I think these are 22s. So that's what you need. And just you could get a pack of those, and maybe there's 3 or 4 in there. I don't know how they're sold but you want one that's not sharp. That's better. You can see that's kind of rounded. If you look against the paper, it's sort of rounded, but you can always dull that down with sandpaper if it's too sharp. Anyway, it's not that important for it to not be sharp, and that's kind of hard to find maybe, so don't worry about that. Okay, so that's the toolkit. Bone folder, Exacto knife, metal ruler, 12 and 18. 18 is recommended. Scissors with a small snip, small tip, cutting mat, needle awl, pencil with eraser, metal triangle, glue brush, stenciling brush, binding thread, binding needle. Okay, so now we're going into the required items. So this is PVA glue. I don't have one of the bottles like I've recommended for you guys to get. This is I have multiple pots of glue like this in these little rubber seal containers. So this is my glue, but it's PVA. I buy it in a gallon bottle at a time. And so I just pour it into these containers. But PVA is what it's called, polyvinyl adhesive. And it's available everywhere, and it's on both of the Blick list and the Amazon list. You can buy a little, it's like this tall of bottle. So you're definitely going to need that. 8.5 by 11 paper. So I'm recommending just like copy paper. There are times when you're going to need this, and you can also use it as scrap paper if you get an inexpensive pack of it. And for scrap paper as well, I think that's the next thing. Yeah, the scrap paper is the next. A catalog, I often use that as scrap paper, but I also use things that I've run through the printer and then didn't need the printout. I'll save those and use those as my gluing undersheet. So this is for gluing later in the semester when we are gluing things. You need something to glue onto and then move out from under. And I just use scrap. And so catalogs you get in the mail, or just an inexpensive copy paper, or used copies, things like that. Book cloth. So getting into the materials here. So this is a piece, you're going to get a roll, a yard of book cloth. This is just a kind of a scrap piece that I had. This is the edge of the book cloth, which is the selvage of the fabric. That's what you see here. So this is the fabric. This is what you would see on the outside of the book. This is a really nice piece of book cloth. That yours will be more of a solid color. This has 2 colors in it. And then it's paper backed like this. So it has this white paper lining that's fused to the fabric. That's what you're going to get, your book cloth. And you need a yard of that. And I've given you links for that. So, but that's what it looks like. Binders board. So there's 2, I'm going to show you 2 things. What I've given you a link for looks like this. And it's sort of it's not archival, probably. I don't know that. It's not like I've pH tested it, but it's thinner. It's a little bit thinner than I normally use. So this is what I buy. It's called Davy board. And it's a little bit thicker. And I use this for the boards of hardback books. And this is a little bit thinner, as you can see, if you look at those side by side, you can sort of see the difference. But this, I actually use this when I'm making mock-ups sometimes, or if I'm making a book that it's not an artist book, it's not from an edition, I'm just making a book, I'll use this. It's not like it does anything. It's not like it seeps through the paper or a cloth or anything. It's not bad. It's just not as high quality as this. And you can kind of see, it just doesn't look as clean. I don't know, you probably can't tell that. But anyway, so you can see the different color. But when you get this and it doesn't look like that, this is fine. And this is what you're going to get from the places that I've given you links to. It's a lot less expensive, and we don't need a whole lot of it. So I think that this is a good replacement for that expensive Davy board. Binders board, 4-ply Bristol board. Okay, so you do need this, and I've just got a piece. These come in pretty large sheets. I think what I've given you is truly Bristol, and it might not be exactly this thickness. What you want is a piece of it's almost like poster board, but it is thicker than that. I would say it's double thickness poster board. Poster board is also probably not archival. It's gonna yellow over time and whatever, but we're going to be using this inside our books later in the semester. We'll be using it more. But this is Bristol card, or folder card, it's sometimes called. And I think, I'm not even sure it comes in this color anymore. I think it's gray now. But this is what it looks like. And this is kind of what, if you can hear that sound that it makes. So it's stiff. It's much stiffer than like cardstock. It's not cardstock. It's heavier than that. But the Bristol that you're going to buy, I don't know for sure because I haven't purchased it, but I think that'll probably work fine. If not, you could always laminate 2 sheets together, or 2 pieces like maybe this size together, glue this out and put another one on top of it and let it dry under weight. And then you'd have a nice, probably the right weight. But we can talk about that. If you guys need help with that later, we can get into that. But this is what it is. It's Bristol board. Folder card. Double-sided tape. So this is you very much need this. So this is called, sometimes you'll see it called transfer tape. So it's got this wax paper carrier, and then it has the adhesive on the other side. And so when you put this down, let me do it on that piece that I had folded. Welcome to my dog. I don't know what she's barking at. I might have to go see. All right, so I just stuck this piece of tape down, and I'm gonna pause so I can go check on, see what she's doing, and I'll be right back. Okay. Yeah, who knows what she was working at, but okay, so I put that piece of tape down, and of course I'm gonna demo this when I'm doing the books, but I'm just giving you kind of a brief, quick example. And then I peel that carrier away. You can see the tape there. And then if I stick this down, it's attached. So it's glued. It kind of works like a dry fuse, like a glue. I mean, I could tear it apart at first before it cures. You can still sort of get things apart. So that's good to know. And there is a really thin film in there as well. That's between the adhesive. So you can peel that off if you need to. So it's a great tool. I use it a lot for different things, and there are different qualities. I'm probably giving you guys one that's not archival. It might be, I don't know. If it's 3M, the brand 3M, it's archival. If it's not 3M, I can't vouch for it. I don't know if it's archival or not. But yeah, I peeled that off and it came right off. But that just shows you that, you know, this stuff's very useful. But we'll be using this pretty soon, so you need to get that ASAP. Double-sided tape. And let's see, next on the list is the Canson color line. So we'll be using that on our end sheets, and you're definitely going to need a good amount of this. So this is like a half sheet. It still has a sticker on it. So you can get, this is Canson. I was just trying to see what it was, but this is like Canson, Fabriano. Those are the two, they're pastel papers. That's what this is. And we'll be using these as our end sheets. It's just an inexpensive, you know, sort of medium to almost heavy text weight paper. And that's what we're going to be using for our end sheets and for different things. And you can use it to make some of the single sheet books that we're going to be making in the next week or so. You're definitely going to need that. And I think I recommend like 15 sheets. You might be able to get away with 10. But it's actually so useful with other things too. I don't think, and they're like $1.25 a sheet. They're really, I think that's what it is. It's not very expensive, so it's a good one to have. And we'll definitely be using it for, like when we make our decorated paper and different things, we'll be using it for that. So you're going to need that. Mulberry paper. So this is for later in the semester. We'll be using this as a lining material. So this is just a little scrap and a little rolled up piece that I have. This one is probably a little bit higher quality than what, this might even be Kozo. But it's very similar to just the regular mulberry paper that you guys are going to get. And you just need to get one sheet of this because it's a pretty large sheet. It's like 18 by 24 or something like that. And that's plenty for what we're going to be using it for. But it's a good printmaking paper. It's good for all kinds of things. So it's, you know, even if you only use half a sheet, you could use the rest of it for something else. But it's super thin. You can see through this one, maybe not as thin as what we're going to use. I can't remember. But you can see my hand through that. And that's how thin it is. But this is for our lining materials later in the semester. We'll be using it for that. So that's mulberry. Mohawk Superfine paper. So this is like a higher quality paper than the copy paper. And I prefer to use this in my books. So you can see it's a little bit different color. This is like a soft white instead of this copy paper white. And it's just a better paper. It's like a 120 GSM, whereas this is probably like an 80. I don't know. And it's not 80 pound, but this is an 80 pound text, but the GSM is, the grams per square meter is like 120 or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but it's a nicer paper. It has a little bit of a tooth to it, which you probably can't see in the video. I don't know, probably not. This one might even be the smooth and not the eggshell finish. I don't know. It doesn't matter. for our purposes. If you get smooth or eggshell, it doesn't matter. I think the Dick Blick, you can't get this at Amazon, I don't believe. I'm going to check again before class, but I just want you guys to know about this. I'm not necessarily requiring it, but I'm going to talk about it so much because that's what I use, that it could be confusing for you. And just copy paper, your books are just not going to be as nice. And you might not even want to use them because, you know, imagine having a sketchbook that's made, like when you buy a nice sketchbook and it has that nice paper in it to draw with pens and pencil and whatever you're going to do, and it holds up to what you're going to do. Copy paper is not going to hold up. So that's why I don't require, especially these days, you know, it's just hard to get things. And so if you're having a problem, you know, you can use copy paper, and maybe if you get a little bit higher quality copy paper, it would be fine. But just think about that for a sketchbook, about the quality. And this is what I would call like a sketchbook quality paper, the Mohawk Superfine paper. And whereas copy paper, it's fine and it will work, but it's not as nice by a long shot. Okay. Mohawk Superfine, that's done. And then the eraser. So we're going to use these for stamps, which we're going to do right away. This is a pretty nice eraser. It's a foam eraser. I actually use this for erasing, but the one that I want you guys to get looks a lot like this. It's just a flat eraser like that. It does not have to be white. It can be green for all I care. It doesn't matter because you're going to use it as a stamp. And so you'll see the video about how to make stamps with erasers. And you can also use that soft cut foam or soft cut. I think it's just called soft cut. And it looks so much like this. It looks almost like an eraser, but it usually comes in like a 3x5 sheet like that. But this is perfectly fine. And you're just, you know, it's required to use it at least one time. You could maybe even make 2 stamps if you cut that in half, like you just cut it in half and made one on this side and one on the other. Anyway, so you will need a flat eraser, at least one, maybe a pack is probably not a bad idea, but it's probably what I'll give you at the Amazon link at least. So I think I gave you soft cut at Blick. Sorry, losing my train of thought. Okay, and then a stamp pad, at least one, and this is the one I'm showing you. And in the Blick list, you'll notice that I just chose the red one. That is not required. Of course, you can get whatever color you want to get. So please make sure you do that, because some people, like sometimes I would just pick the color that was first in the list and it's like this ugly purple that everyone hated. And I'm like, I didn't realize I had to explain that you can choose any of those colors. I just gave you, it won't let me just give a link to the whole list. I have to choose an item. So, but yes, please understand that you do not have to have red. You can get blue, purple, green, whatever you would like to get. Yeah, you can get that color. And I would recommend, we're going to be using it for a decorated paper later in the semester. You're going to want maybe more than one color. And 2 would be great. 2 is fine because you can layer and overprint with that. Okay, and then there's a few recommended items. The first one, I actually don't have this on the list, but I am going to give you guys a link for that. And this is a Teflon folder. So it's like a bone folder. This is the bone folder that's really, it's made from probably cow bone, maybe deer bone. It's made from bone. Some people don't like that about it. But a Teflon folder these days is maybe the same price as a bone folder. These things used to be like 25 bucks a piece and they're like $7 now, or at least at Amazon. And maybe it's not Teflon. I don't know why, but I'm telling you, I saw this recently and I was blown away because even a few years ago, they were a lot more. So a Teflon folder, the difference is, I'll show you on that piece of paper again. So with a bone folder, when you score hard, you can even see that it made a little shine. And so if you're not careful, you can actually scuff and like burnish on your book cloth or your paste paper or your decorated paper or whatever it is. And that doesn't look good. You might not like that. Whereas with a Teflon folder, you can push pretty hard and it doesn't do that. I mean, I'm sure I could make it happen if I used all the force. It still didn't do it. Maybe there's something like a little dent there, but it's not burnished like the bone folder did. So this creates a sheen. You just have to be careful. Of course, you can avoid that, but it's hard, you know, a little harder, a little more difficult. Teflon is great. It doesn't do that. So that's why I like that. And I will give you guys a link on Amazon for sure for that, for the Teflon folder. The Japanese screw punch. So this is something that is not required, but it is cool. And I'm going to use it in one of the videos for one of the books. I forget which book. But you use it, it looks like this. And it has this big screw right here. And you can change the punch out. So there's interchangeable punches that go in. And you tighten this down. And then you can see the little dots are flying out that were in here. You put your hand on top, like your thumb on top, and hold it. And then you push straight down and it like self screws down and it punches a hole. And what's nice about it, instead of a regular punch where it'll only go so far into the piece of paper because it's a handle, you know, it looks like that, and it can only go as far as like the metal goes. So you can't usually get to the center of a piece of paper with it because you can't get in that far. So this is a really nice tool, whether you use it for this class or for anything that you would want to punch holes in. And it really is fun. And it's a nice thing. They're like 25 bucks, which is another one that used to be like $60. And they're a lot less now. They're probably not as nice as this, maybe the brass. This is brass. I don't know, but they're accessible a lot more than they used to be. Japanese screw punch. The compass circle cutter, so demo this as well. This is not required, but we're going to be making a volvel, and it's nice to have this, but you can also use just circular items like this to trace and cut by hand. That's fine. But this is a cool thing. So I'm going to show you how to use this. It has the compass and it has a blade, and I'm sure I demo this when I'm showing the volvel as well, but I'm going to show it here just so you can think about whether or not you want to get this. And the blade needs to be sharp. It was sliding a little bit. And it cuts a circle. So you can do things like make little windows and flaps with this. And then you can also cut full circles, of course. I'm doing this too quickly. I'm going to mess up because I'm doing that. But it'll give you a sense. And really, I should be standing so that I can get pressure on it evenly. But yeah, that gives you a pretty good example. Cutting that circle out of a piece of paper. Yeah. So I love this thing. It's called a Olfa Compass Circle Cutter, and I'll share the link at Amazon for this. And this piece is a little cover for it because it is sharp. So that's a really great tool. A fettling knife, that is right here. And I have two examples of this because really what it is, it's basically a butter knife. It's like a letter opener. This is a pottery tool. Someone told me, I think that it's to get pots off of when after you throw them or after they're leather hard or something. So you have a fold, and I'm going to show you how to tear paper later in the semester in another video. But let's say you have a fold. I'm doing it at diagonal. That's not the best. And you can just tear, because we're going to be tearing down a rough cutting paper. And it leaves a rough edge, but when we're rough cutting that, it's a quick way to tear down paper. And so it's actually hard to do without this tool. But I also wanted to show this because this is like an antique knife. I think it's probably an ivory handle, but that's not what I use it for. I use this as a palette knife for mixing ink, and I use it as a tearing knife because they're not, I mean, yeah, you could cut yourself with it if you really wanted to, but it's not super sharp. But this is like an antique. You probably go to a thrift store and find something like that. It's just thin. It's thinner than a ruler. That's another way to tear, but it's just not as neat. So a fettling knife or a little like inexpensive old butter knife. And then the last thing on the list is the linoleum cutting tool. So people might already be familiar with this. This is sort of like the Japanese screw punch. It comes with different heads that you can change in and out here. You can loosen this and pull that blade out and then switch in another one. Right in there right now is just the small V gouge, which is what I use a lot. So, but this is for cutting the eraser. And I'm not going to do it because I do it in a video and I don't want to, this is actually my eraser, so I don't want to cut this. But the way I'll kind of mime the movement, and it is to, like if this is your, I would push down and kind of gouge out material like that. The lino cut tool is that. Okay. So there's of course a video showing you that. These are pretty inexpensive. I've had this one for a really long time and they're pretty indestructible, or at least they used to be. I don't know if they still are, but they're not very expensive. And I will give you links at both places for this. But this is for our project coming up soon. So if you want that, you can, and you don't have to do that. You can also just cut your eraser into shapes and make and print like that. That's the two options. Okay, so anyway, that is our materials. And if you have questions, you can always ask me in class and I can show you other examples. I can send you links to better quality materials if you need that, but that's the required and recommended materials for the book arts class. All right, thanks, bye.